Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome to our Sunday night live stream here on Texas Football. We're just going to go for the halftime, of course, of the Super Bowl. We realize that the big game is happening right now, so we'll make sure we get all of the nuggets in and all of your questions in as well. We got, of course, joining us, the man, the myth, the legend, Bobby Burton. Joining us as well is Jerry Hamilton. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Let's not waste any time, gentlemen. Let's get right into it. We'll talk about some big news on the recruiting trail for the Longhorns. And we'll also get into any of the questions and comments you guys have, and of course everybody's commentary from what we're watching right now, which is a thorough biblical style butt whipping that the Philadelphia Eagles are putting on Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
I don't want to jinx producer Matt, but for those that don't know, big Eagles fan, this has like been taking joy mode continuously for like 30 minutes of football right here.
Yeah,
that's a walking joy mode read right now.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Yeah. Hey, Jerry, you got some big recruiting news that came up this week or this weekend. Actually, earlier today, you broke the news that the nation's #1 ranked tight end will be visiting Austin. Yeah. And what weekend is that? Let people know what's going on there. We also need to talk about the basketball game today.
Women.
Yeah,
not the men's. Women's.
Yes, not the men's. I was at the men's game on Saturday. Not the men's. The women's. Yeah. Go for it, Jerry. What about Mark Bowman?
Yeah, Mark Bowman, the 5-star tight end out of Mater Dei, whose father obviously has spent a lot of time in Austin in various times in his life. He is visiting Texas June 6th through 8th. So that'll be both of the reclass guys from 27 to 26. Mark Bowman, the 5-star tight end, and Xavier Crowell, the running back, will be top 50, 75 level prospect in the country. They will both be June 6th. John Turntine, 5-star offensive tackle, will be June 20th. That adds to a list of visitors. We're up to 20 official visitors. So if you haven't seen that updated official visitors list, it's on ontexasfootball.com. Not a better time to become a member. Is 20 official visitors now confirmed. Kosi Okpala, 4-star plus linebacker out of Maid Creek, is June 20th. Tank King, the inside linebacker from Port Arthur Memorial, is June 13th. We have a number of offensive linemen. That June 20th offensive line group is now Turntine, Samuel Rosenborough, Max Wright, Nicholas Robertson, Sam Utu. I broke that yesterday. Sam Utu from Orange Lutheran, the football/volleyball player, 6'5", 300 pounds. He will be June 20th as well. So, but Mark Bowman, 2 5-stars today confirmed for June official visits. Mark Bowman and John Turntine. So it's going to be a very, very busy month of June. And I'm not claiming booms in June, but it's going to be boom town in July and August for Bobby.
Boom town. I like that. This tight end, Mark Bowman, as you said, 5-star tight end.
Yeah.
Texas seems to be recruiting some different athletes now at the tight end position. Sark said originally when the guys he inherited that tight end was the second most important position in his offense. I can't wait to see what they do with it going forward. The group they have on campus right now with the latest recruiting class. Obviously, we've talked about Jordan Washington and what obviously his athletic profile and how it may translate in different ways. I think they're doing something interesting with it, and I think you'll see it come to fruition in the next couple of years. I think it's going to be a little bit different than what we've seen potentially on the 40 acres.
There was actually some big tight end news this weekend. So as well, Rod, you rolled right into something pretty cool. I'm going to put the video out. I think we're going to have a video interview with Nick Townsend. I'm going to put the video out that he sent me from yesterday with that when that comes out. But the first track meets of the high school season in Texas were this weekend. Rod, Nick Townsend ran in the 4x1 for Decaney. You want to take a guess at what his split was? 10.57. Rod, 10.57. Now that's essentially a 10.85 in a FAT Open 100, but 10.57 split. And when I was at Decaney, and this goes right into your point about the tight ends now, when I was at Decaney for his signing ceremony Wednesday, even though they already signed, they had a ceremony for all the kids at Decaney, so he took part in it. They expect him to run low 21 point in the 200. If he gets 225,
what?
then everybody's going to say, why didn't we rank this guy 5 stars? What's going to happen?
That's crazy. I think I was running like that.
I mean, he is fast.
I was like a low 21. Like, that's crazy. That's freaky.
At 225. That's like Derek Johnson like level, Adrian Peterson level track stuff right there is what that is, right? You're like, whoa, how's that even possible? That size type stuff.
Yeah. No, I feel like the athlete, they're different at tight end. I feel like, and except doing like JT Sanders was some scrub right there. You're talking about a 5-star athlete there at tight end too, that he was inheriting, but it just feels like now that, you know, I think they're going to do something with it a little bit differently. But like I said, that's in the future. But okay, before we get deep into the weeds here, let's thank our one of our sponsor, for our Sunday night live stream, our friends over at rogueshop.com. That's right, rogueshop.com, bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. Make sure use the promo code. You see it right there on your screen on Texas, and you'll get a very special discount from our very special friends over at Rogue Shop. They got it all, folks, from oils and creams, flour, gummies, and vitamins. If you're having some issues with sleep deprivation, or you're having anxiety issues, or maybe a lot of aches and pains, I've dealt with those aches and pains myself. Our friends over at Rogue Shop have a variety of different items that can help you, that will help you. Actually, I got a friend in the Owen, Texas football family who told me that they swear by rogueshop.com. They had a issue getting to sleep, and turns out one of the things they found at rogueshop.com really helped them, and it continues to help them, and it'll help you too. Go to rogueshop.com, use the discount code on Texas, bringing real plant medicine back to its roots with rogueshop.com. All right. Also, they ship nationwide, by the way. Boom, ship nationwide. So no matter where you are in the nation, they can get it to you, get their great products to you at rogueshop.com. All right. Let's get to a couple of, I want to get you guys thoughts about the Super Bowl. We'll get to some super chats here. I want to get you guys thoughts about the Super Bowl, the lessons that we're learning from the Super Bowl that translate to Texas football, because it's still football in the end. So I want to get to that a little bit, but let's hit these super chats first. From Todd Lacey. Thank you, Todd. We appreciate the super chat very much. Says, when might the next commitment come for 2026?
I think the spring. I'm always looking at offensive line right now. We talked about that. Max Wright's on the board. It will not surprise me if there's a offensive lineman or two that commit before June visits. I think those guys tend to commit a little earlier. They come off their timelines because 5-6 guys in some of these offensive line classes around the country, they do get squeezed a little bit, right, Bobby? So, and those guys tend to decide a little earlier at times. Not the turn times of the world. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it wouldn't shock me if Texas doesn't have 2 or 3 offensive line commitments by June.
Wow. Is that the focus? What is that the focus in this class? What's the focus in the class?
That's a big part of it, right? And it's a great group of offensive linemen. The in-state is awesome for talent. And then nationally is also really good. So you put those together, and Texas should have a tremendous 5 or 6 man offense. If they just get the guys that are scheduled, if they get 5 or 6 of the guys that have scheduled official visits, it's a great class on the offensive line. If they just split those guys down the middle at various spots, it's a great offensive line class for Texas. I mean, it has a chance to be really, really good. I think linebacker is really good. Around in the state of Georgia, linebackers off the charts. But I think linebacker around the country is really good from what I'm seeing on tape in 2026 as well. Pretty good year in state as well. So I think if that number, because since Texas didn't get that 3rd linebacker in 25, I think a 3 linebacker class in 26 has the potential to be really good for Texas as well. Wide receiver DB is going to have. I mean, that's that's always going to be that level.
Yeah. Hey, Rod. You asked what the focus is. I don't know that there is a focus right now at Texas. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about a singular position focus. Yeah. Like last year, they had to address defensive line, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We knew some of those, they had to get more guys in the pipeline. That's still the same, but they need to do that everywhere now. And that's what they're trying to do. They're evolving to a program such as they don't have these glaring young weaknesses anywhere. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. So when you say, is this going to be an offensive line class, a defensive line class? And that is what happens sometimes, notably, but I don't think it's happening at Texas this year. I think they just want to go out and get, a regular old draft where they get as good a players as they can at every position.
They're the best player on their board kind of thing now. Best player on the board, not glaring deficiency. That
I mean, if there is one, tell me where it is. I mean, they need more young defensive linemen in the program, but everybody does, and they got 2 last year, 3 possibly, so they're starting to fill that void. They got a good corner. They got corners last year. They got safeties. They got wide receivers. They got tight ends. They got all. I mean, maybe a little heavy on the offensive line, but overall, I don't think it's huge. So I think to your question, I think it's going to be well rounded overall.
And
sorry, go ahead, Rod.
No, I was just gonna say, and you no longer like, sometimes you can be a little bit limited because of what's in the state if you're heavily recruiting in the state, but Texas is no longer limited by that because they recruit so much nationally in SEC territory. So,
Kenneth Cassidy, you said what happened with Yahya Giad? Texas just didn't push for him. They weren't ready to make a decision there.
Well, that was a guy that was out of the just north of Memphis, and he actually tried to commit to Texas around the 1st of January. I remember I was in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl, Jerry, when he was going to commit to Texas, and people were like, "Hey, this guy's getting ready to commit," etc. And we were like, "Wait a minute, let's see if Texas actually takes the commitment and goes forward." That got put on hold, and then he came down for the junior day. Texas once again did not push for him,
and Sark wasn't around to meet.
Right, and Sark wasn't around to meet, and so he ended up going up to SMU and decided to go to SMU. I don't think I'm not saying that he won't end up being a really good player. He will, most likely, but it wasn't one that, to Jerry's point, that Texas pushed on. And I will say this: there can be good players that Texas decides not to push on.
Oh, no doubt.
That can end up turning out right. I wrote this article this morning for OnTexasFootball.com about how these 3 players in the Super Bowl that Texas recruited and how they recruited them.
That's good.
And one of the things that I wrote about was Charles Omenihu. Texas, a lot of people don't remember this, but he was close to committing to Northwestern. Like very close to committing to Northwestern and shutting it down. His dad was ready to be done with it because big academic. And Chris Rump, the defensive line coach at Texas, ended up taking him and pushing for him really hard. And when he did that, he was also recruiting a guy named Dorrance Armstrong.
Yeah.
Out of North Shore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he made a decision between Charles Omenihu and Dorrance Armstrong because they only have one more spot left. Well, Charles Omenihu ended up being pretty good, but so did Dorrance Armstrong. And so my point is, just because Texas doesn't push for a guy doesn't mean they're not good. And of course, then you have the
Ojimo was a senior riser, by the way. Ojimo was a senior riser with college.
Yep.
He was not heavily recruited going into his senior year. Then at
Not
the
at
end,
all.
he became
He was young.
Texas. Yeah, he was young, 16. Then he ended up becoming Texas, Miami, Alabama. Everybody wanted him at the end. But going into his senior year, he was not a really highly recruited player.
Got a tackle for loss already in the Super Bowl, I believe. Ojimo does. Charles Omenihu, he'll bounce back and make a play. He had that unfortunate was offsides early on. So I don't think X-Men has a target. Does X-Men have a target?
He has one. He's got one for 2 yards. He caught one on the first series.
Yeah, okay.
Rod for 2 yards.
Yeah.
And by the way,
look, they just put up a stat on the Super Bowl: lowest passing output in the first half of Patrick Mahomes' career as a starter.
And remember how ugly that Tampa Bay was against Tampa Bay. So
this is what that looks like, right? It looks like the Tampa. Doesn't it look like the Tampa Bay game?
No, it goes back to an old football lesson that I've been taught. They always said, right, that protection beats coverage. So think about 4th and 13 for Texas. They had 6 DBs back there in coverage, not 6 DBs, but 6 defenders back in coverage. Texas had three receivers out on routes, match protection, still beat them. Why? Really good protection beats coverage. This game is showing that pressure beats protection. Good pressure will beat protection every time. And that's kind of the lesson I connect to Texas. Texas got a chance to have some elite pressure potentially. And man, you can really, I'm telling you, you can blow. Think about the GOATs, right? Patrick Mahomes in that conversation. Tom Brady. What's been the only things that have beaten those guys in Super Bowls? Tampa Bay did it. You're seeing it right now with Philly. What beat Tom Brady with the Giants? What beat him when he faced Philly? It was pressure. It's pressure. Because that's every quarterback. We're hard on Quinn Quinn Ewers about, how he handles pressure. Truth is, no quarterback handles pressure well, right, Jared? There's not, none of them do. None of them handle it well.
When MIGs are flying all in your peripheral, it's not easy to scan a field. I mean, like people are like, oh, he's missing open guys. He may not be able to see them because everybody's in his vision. Like he may not see people. Like it's easy to see when there's no pressure. It's really hard to see when there's 6'5" long arm guys coming through your peripheral all the time. What's easy to see from the stands and TVs, never easy to see in a pocket when you're under duress.
Yep.
By the way, my question for the chat, does Taylor Swift write a breakup song with Kelsey and come out with a Cooper DeJean jersey on in the second half?
Hey, bringing back the white TV, baby. That's what I'm talking about, Cooper DeJean. Good for you, brother. Hey, we've been talking about it for a long time. Somebody's got to make it happen. Cooper DeJean. There's a lot of little kids out there watching. They want to be a white DB, but they've been.
It's cornerback, Rod. Be specific.
Well, Taylor's really good at writing breakup songs, man. Travis Kelce better be careful at halftime. The whole thing, it may get worse in the game in the second half for him.
He might
Something
get
about drops in the Super Bowl. You look at it overall right now, and I feel like Texas is well represented in the Super Bowl, but this whole idea that I don't know. I feel like the Longhorns right now are in really good shape, recruiting wise, team wise. And I think that when y'all talk about pass rush and what Texas can be, that's what I think that, Rod, you hit the nail on the head. That's where that can be Texas's strength in 2025.
Yes.
Not only is Colin Simmons back, but Trey Moore is back. Ethan Burke is back. I think Colton Vosick should be healthier.
Anthony Hill and Brad Spence at linebackers going to be the best pass rushing linebacker combo Texas has had.
I mean, all those guys. Yeah, I think Travis Shaw actually.
Yeah, he's good.
Very disruptive in the pass game.
Look, it wouldn't shock me if Texas wasn't a 50 sack team next year. Honestly.
Oh wow, Jerry.
In 13 to 14. That's what Ole Miss was about. Would it really surprise you? I mean, Ole Miss had 48?
Well, I'll say what it said. Now you're talking about that's a good point though, because Jerry, you're talking about like a 16-game season now. So
I was going with 13 games because I mean, what Ole Miss had 48 and 12.
Ooh. What did Texas had this year? What they got what did they get this year? The 40s, right?
41 or 42, I think.
Oh yeah, more.
I mean, actually, it's not that crazy now that Jerry said it. I mean, but Jerry's talking about 13 games. That's some haymaker numbers right there. In 13,
that's still 4+ a game.
If you get that, Jerry, you're gonna have 2 double-digit sack defenders, right? 2 guys with double digits. If you get to that number, right? Are we assuming? Or at least you don't have a lot of guys with 5+ sacks, which could be the other way, but I could see Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill both having double-digit sacks.
By the way, so for the season, with the season concluded, Ohio State ended up with 53 sacks in 16 games. Ole Miss had 52 and 13. Texas had 46 and 16, so they ended up 4th. Number 1 was Boise with 55 and 14, but you got to throw them out. So I'm telling you, Texas had it wouldn't shock me, man. I mean, Ole Miss put up 52 in 13 games. Now, they don't blitz as much as Ole Miss did. That's the difference. But it wouldn't shock me if Texas goes back to the SEC title game, if it gets in the playoffs, if they're at 50 in 14 games. That wouldn't shock me, man. I think they got that level guys.
I don't disagree with that, though. They got some guys like that. All right, getting back to the super chats here. Eric, thank you for the super chat. We appreciate it. Says, this is a conversation we probably should be having too. What's the actual outlook on Longhorn legend Huff Daddy being interested in an on-field DB coaching role at Texas? Realistic? Seems like he's pretty comfortable in his current role helping the team. Thank you very much, Eric. We appreciate that super chat. DB coach, guys, seems quiet on the front of search for a DB coach. What do you guys thought? First start with Huff Daddy and how realistic that may be, but then what are your thoughts about overall the vacancy?
Well, I mean, as of right now, we don't know exactly which direction Texas is leaning and which direction Steve Sarkisian is leaning at the DB coach. I don't think Michael Huff is going to be a part of that right now. more than he is currently. Perhaps he becomes a part-time on-field assistant, but not one of the primary on-field assistants.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about and have been talking about for several days. Texas didn't just lose Blake Gideon, the safeties coach. They also lost the Nichols coach, Scotty Hazelton, to become the defense coordinator at Wake Forest back in January. The question is whether or not Texas is going to remake how they manage their entire secondary, because the secondary this year took a major step forward. Was that because of the pass rush? Was that because of the personnel? Yes and yes. But it also could have been because of the coaching, because for the first time, they had a really high-end, educated secondary coach that just focused on the nickels, just the nickels. He wasn't working with the safeties. He wasn't working with the corners, working with the nickels, and that's Scotty Hazel. So is Sark, did he and Pete Kwiatkowski and Johnny Nansen, did they like what they saw so much that they might rethink how they do things there? I think we need to find that out. Has Sark made that decision? I don't know. But I got a feeling that something may be up there that's a little bit broader than just, replacing Blake Gideon is not the only piece in his brain right now, in my opinion.
And also just a little caveat that the Texas staff's not even in Austin right now. They're all off for a little vacation until they come back the 17th or 16th. Start back on the 17th. So Sark gave those guys some. That doesn't mean some parts aren't moving. But the other thing with college coaches in hiring and things like that, March 1 is when buyouts go down, from what I hear on some guys. So I'm not saying something can't happen before March 1st, but March 1st is when some buyouts go down.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the super chat, Eric. We really appreciate that. Juan, thank you for this super chat. And we have given a shout out, but we probably should give them more of a shout out. The women, the Lady Longhorns, is how about them Lady Longhorns? Big win for Vic Schaefer. He coached the men's team. Yeah. Honestly, Vic Schaefer can not only coach men's basketball because he can coach basketball. I talked to Vic Schaefer and found out that once he used to be a football coach. And I thought about that. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. When it was like, oh, yeah, he used to coach football. I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But congratulations to the women, 66-62 wins. You can see there over South Carolina. They were number 2 ranked South Carolina team coming in to Moody. And I heard, guys, that the Moody Center was honestly that it was more electric than some of the fans who've been to a lot of Texas basketball games for the men say it was more electric for that game than they've seen there in a long time. And Vic Schaefer, honestly, with what he's done with that team, he probably should get more of a response and support from us and all of us because they're doing some great things there, no doubt.
Maddie Booker led the way with 20 points, Rod. But really, it was a second quarter run that put Texas in control of that game. And then the third quarter, South Carolina came back and made a mad dash, erased a double-digit lead at one point for Texas. And then the fourth quarter, Texas held a 2 to 3 point lead for most of it. South Carolina came back and tied it up. Texas went back and forth. Texas never was behind in the fourth quarter, but the Gamecocks made it very, very interesting. To your point, our CJ Vogel was there, and he literally was texting us. He said, the Moody is a madhouse right now with this game. And so hats off to the folks that went out there and cheered on the women earlier today. Big win for Texas because now, Jerry, I mean, they're sitting on a 1 seed right now, tied for first in the SEC as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a huge win for the 1 seed. And, look, there's a lot of season left, but unless they kind of really stumble down the stretch here. And they got some tough games coming up. So unless they really stumble down the stretch, though, if they can close out with 2 SEC losses, right, that they're going to be a 1 seed team. And that's the big thing. And I've been saying, and nothing's changed, it's all going to come down to matchups for them. There's certainties like UConn basketball last year. You said the matchups don't even matter. They're just better than everybody else. Texas, it's going to come down to matchups because, I mean, look, they won this home game. They didn't make a 3. you're gonna come up against somebody in the tournament. You know, if it's a Notre Dame that plays zone and really shoots it well, there's some matchup issues for them in the tournament. But if you're 1 seed, you may not see that matchup issue until Elite Eight or Final Four game, maybe even a national championship game, depending on how a bracket breaks for you. But it's definitely they're playing tremendous. They play so hard for Vic. They're going to be it's going to be about matchups for them when they get deep into the tournament. It really is. And I know people say it's that way for everybody, but some teams it's not. Like you could say, oh, this team nobody had a chance to beat UConn last year in men's, no chance. I mean, there were some UConn women's teams. Matchups didn't matter. They're going to beat your butt anyway. So, but there's a couple of matchups for them, and you just got to see how the bracket breaks. But if you get a 1 seed, you'll take your chances and get in every game you can at that point.
All right. Freelance Society. Thank you, Freelance Society, for the super chat. Hope you're doing well. Freelance Society. And by the way, go give him a follow there or subscribe to him, Freelance Society. It does actual news. All right.
Yes.
Actual journalism. All right. The kind that actually counts and matters. All right. He said, rewatch some of Quinn's games. Has he ever looked fully healthy and confident since the Turner hit, or just flashes? Excited for a mobile quarterback. Thank you, Freelance.
Bobby, I think that's the one thing. I think everybody would agree here. That's the one thing with Quinn is we haven't seen him fully healthy since his junior year in high school, really. I mean, sophomore years, junior, he was hurt too. I mean, so it's hard to say when somebody's hurt every single year and misses time every single year what they can. You haven't seen him kind of at their best for a long stretch of time because they haven't been able to stay healthy. It's a really hard thing to
this past season. Maybe the start of this past season.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to gauge when you're never healthy.
Yeah, to start the season. And that's when he plays the big time competition, right, Bobby? That's when he plays Alabama. And that's why he's such a conundrum. He plays Alabama and Michigan, and those are some of his best games that he's played. And then later on throughout the season, you see kind of a regression at times and inconsistency from Quinn. So I'm with it. I don't know which Quinn that what team's gonna gamble on. You'll gamble on the Quinn you've seen in the Michigan, Alabama games, or the Quinn that you saw in some of the games, down the stretch versus Georgia, or which one matters the most to you as a scout? Which Quinn? Because even as a Longhorn fan, I think a Longhorn fan's a little torn on which Quinn that they
completely fair. I mean, Jerry and I would agree with. I mean, Jerry, all three of us talked post game. Every post game, it was like which one is it? And
he's going to be so interesting in the draft because we all know this, and we'll all be there. Pro day, he is going to whip that rock around, and then the people are going to have the inside team's offices. They're going to have probably disagreements on what he is because the tape's not going to measure up to the pro days, the on air, and so he's going to be quite an interesting discussion for NFL teams. I have a feeling.
I agree with that. Yeah, I can't wait to see what team takes him. And you talk about matchups in the tournament, Jerry, in the NFL, matchups and world with compatibility, right? In terms of players with systems and players with coaches and styles and that kind of stuff too. That matters a lot.
Hey, by the way, I wanted to say this for the women's basketball win because I think I left out a very important thing. As important as being a 1 seed, there are a few wins during a regular season that have a lot of meaning in recruiting. And beating Dawn Staley and ending the 57-game winning streak in that conference, you're in a battle for Aaliyah Chavez and probably lead, right, over with Oklahoma. But that's a pretty big deal. That would have been like Texas beating Georgia in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that would have been like. I mean, for real. If we're just being real about it, that's what it would have been like.
Yep.
They had a good game plan. They beat South Carolina inside in the paint.
40 points,
Jerry. Kyla Oldacre, Taylor Jones.
Yeah.
But also on defense. I mean, look, and they're spelling Rory Harmon at the right time with this young freshman from Atlanta, Brianna Preston at point guard. I mean, what a breath of fresh air she was in the fourth quarter. Because Rory Harmon was clearly getting tired.
Yeah.
That was a frenetic pace. They were asking everybody to play. I'm kind of like you. I think it's going to depend on all of those things, but look, they've got a chance. We'll see where that all goes.
Eli has a question here. How long will it take Texas to get a new DB coach? Now is there any, I would say, commonality between the timelines of when Sark has hired coaches? Is it, because I haven't really I haven't thought about it.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is it all, you know what I mean? Is it 2 weeks? Is it a month? Is it,
he waited almost a month for Chris Jackson past signing day, right? Almost.
Yeah.
To get past the NFL season 1 year. I mean, dude, he doesn't rush doing anything. I really don't. I mean, does he, Jerry?
No, well, I mean, there's a couple of things, Bobby. It's what you were talking about earlier. There's multiple defensive back spots that have to be filled. Oh, and by the way, Terry Josephs was working on a 1-year contract. There hasn't been anything announced on extension there. So you don't, when would that happen, Bobby, through the Regents, if he was getting extended or not? I mean, so you just don't. There's a lot of moving pieces, and there's not just one hire, it's multiple hires. And it kind of goes back to what Bobby said is, what is Sark going to do with the secondary as a whole? Because I think both of those hires, the current hires, are going to have to fit together.
Yeah. Well, the Regents don't have to approve an assistant coach salary as long as it doesn't go above a certain threshold. So look, my thinking on this is they've got 2 spots. How are they going to manage that with everything that's going on? Does Sark say, wow, this was so good this year? And Rod, you sent me a stat, how much they improved from 2022 to 2020, from 2023 to 2024.
Yep.
And it was astronomical, right? Yep. And they did that in one season. How much of that is the pass rush? How much of that is adding Andrew Makuba, moving Jade Barron to corner? I mean, and then how much of it was coaching and how they approached coaching this year? And I don't know what level Sark or level of emphasis Sark puts on that. I just don't know. Jerry doesn't know. And so until he steps forward and does something, I think we gotta wait and see what happens.
All right, let's thank our friends over at Rogue Shop as we get close to the end of our Sunday night live stream here, our halftime live stream here. Thank you to our friends here at Rogue Shop, rogueshop.com. Remember, use that discount code on Texas, and you'll get a very special discount from our very special friends over at rogueshop.com, bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. They have all types of variety of different items, oils, creams, flour, gummies, vitamins as well. If you have sleep deprivation issues or anxiety or aches and pains, check out rogueshop.com, folks. They have a lot of different things that can help you. As a matter of fact, a member of the On Texas football family recently told me that they're big fans of rogueshop.com, help them with getting the sleep every night, a good night of sleep every night, and it may be able to help you as well. Rogueshop.com, use the discount code there on Texas. All right. We have one last question from David in the live stream. He says, is it me or is this the best O-line recruiting Texas has been on?
Ooh, I don't know, but about 3 or 4 years ago with Elvis Banks. And I don't know what you want, but you're going to have a first-round draft pick, a second-round draft pick, and
I will say
how many more.
I will say this for David Rawls. If you're talking about the number of guys that have been in on and are coming in for official visits, it's probably going to be the highest ranked group because it's going to be a 5-6 man class. So you're going to have 10, 11 official visitors, right? And they're all going to be ranked pretty highly. I mean, people are sleeping on Nicholas Roberts. I mean, anybody has him ranked at 3 stars out of their mind. But I mean, Toa Katoa the same way. But by the time all this shakes out, it's going to be a double-digit worth of 4-star plus prospects. They're in on a lot of guys.
Rod, 2 sacks. The Chiefs make a first down. First 2 plays of the first half. Next 2 plays, sack.
Is your prediction?
I've seen a lot of sackles in this game.
There have been a few.
Pass rush. Oh, Jeff, real quick, guy says in the preliminary, thank you for the super chat, Jeff. In the preliminary college athletics legal settlement, if a player was not a part of the agreement, do they have to adhere to the final settlement? That might take some research, Jeff. I'm not sure I know the answer to that right now off top. Can do some research on that. That's an interesting question, though. Any of you guys have any thoughts on that?
They have to opt in. Everybody has to opt in.
Okay.
All right. So the answer is no, they're not automatically part of it. They have to opt in.
Okay.
But there is a construct within which they opt into it. So
right.
that's how that works.
All right, thanks for that, Bobby. There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for the super chat. We appreciate it. And thank you guys for joining us for our halftime live stream here. We'll get back to the Super Bowl, let you get back to the Super Bowl. Thank you to RogueShop.com for sponsoring our Sunday night live stream. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes. And I don't want to jinx it, but Matthew, I'm rooting for you. All right. Thank you to Jerry. Thank you to Bobby as well. Thank you all you guys. Remember, tomorrow, Coffee and Football. You missed any of your questions or comments, direct them to the guys at Coffee and Football. We'll also have the winning drive tomorrow at 3:15. Coffee and Football at 8 a.m. Thank you guys. And until next time, hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em, guys. Root for